All right, so we're gonna go into a little bit of First Samuel and Second Samuel. Okay. So here we are. David's in the wilderness of Ziph. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna okay, so these are the years of David being in the wilderness. Okay. David's in a few places in the wilderness. Sorry, my phone is I don't have much data, so there's Michael McKinney here, so I enjoy reading other people's perspectives and then giving my perspective. So David, whose name means beloved. All right. You know the beautiful thing, okay, about David, like it says here, he never lost sight of God. Okay. So the thing about David, David was probably, as big of a sinner as you could probably get. Okay. And there's just so many things that you could say about David. Okay, so Saul's out to kill him. David flees into the wilderness, trying to stay out of trouble, but not feeling welcomed in his own country. Okay, so we'll get into this here. Okay, so the Ziphites come to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Does not David hide himself in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon?" Saul arose, went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. So Saul pitched his tent in Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon by the way. David stayed in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. Okay. A little bit about Ziph. It's on the border of Edom, given to the tribe of Judah. Okay. In Joshua's divisions of the land. So eventually, we're going to see that the Ziphites do betray David. So they'd rather they'd rather, praise and protect Saul, not David. Okay, so David sent out spies and understood that Saul had come. Okay, so this also goes back to Psalm 63, I believe. Okay, which you could go to that and read that right now. O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. So this is kind of like describing the wilderness. To see your power and your glory, so as I have seen you in the sanctuary, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied as with the marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you upon my bed and meditate on you in the night watches. Because you have been my help, therefore in the shadow of your wings will I rejoice. My soul follows hard after you. Your right hand upholds me. But those that seek my soul to destroy it shall go into the lower parts of the earth. They shall fall by the sword. They shall be a portion for foxes. So we know that Saul fell by his own sword, actually. But the king shall rejoice in God, and every one that swears by him shall glory. But the mouth of them that speak lies shall be stopped. Okay, so go back to Samuel here. So David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand. So David arose, he passed over with the 600 men that were with him to Achish, the son of Maach, the king of Gath, and David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men. He and his men, and every man with his household. So Achish, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his two wives, Ahinoam and Abigail, Nabal's wife. So it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more for him again. So David said to Achish, if I have now found grace in your eyes, let them give me in a place in some town of the country that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day. In Ziklag, we know that this pertains to the kings of Judah. Okay, the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. So David and his men went up, invaded the Geshurites, the Gezrites, the Amalekites, and those nations were of old, the inhabitants of the land, as you go to shore, even to the land of Egypt. And David smote the land. Okay. Left neither man nor woman alive, took away the sheep, the oxen, the asses, the camels, the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, where have you made a road today? And David said, against the south of Judah and against the south of the Jerahmeelites and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tithings to Gath, lest they should tell on us. So did David, so will be the manner all while he dwells in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, he has made his people Israel to utterly abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. So when it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel, and Achish said to David, And you do know that you shall go out with me to battle, you and your men. And David said to Achish, surely you know what your servant can do. I will make you. And Achish said to David, I will make you keeper of my head forever. This is interesting. I will make you keeper of my head forever. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel lamented him, buried him in Ramah, even in his own city, and Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. So the Philistines gathered themselves together, came and pitched in Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw all the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. When Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Okay, and so this Urim and Thummim thing, it means lights and perfections. They're not really described. They're just like kind of stones, maybe, possibly in the breastplate of the high priest. You know, so they were like almost like dice. Like you kind of like cast them like dice, and the manner how they would fall would be like the lots being cast. Okay. So this is also pertaining to Psalms 22. They cast lots for my vestures, for my garments. And so the manner of their fall somehow would reveal the Lord's will. So this is what they did with Jonah as well. So that God's will would kind of be like illumined. That would give the answer through like an inner illumination. Okay, so to speak. So obviously God is not answering Saul here. And said Saul to his servants, seek me a woman that has a familiar spirit. So he goes and visits the witch at Endor. Now Saul disguises himself. He put on different raiments, and he went, and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night and said, I pray you, divine to me. Now this is very interesting because later on, later on in Acts, I can't remember where it's at in Acts, but Paul kind of, instead of Saul going to the witch to divine, okay, for money, okay, Paul in the Acts, he's telling this woman that has a familiar spirit, okay, and rebukes her in the name of Christ, okay. So you see this parallel a lot in the Bible where old man, new man, old things, new things, these things, So, and the woman said, behold, you know what Saul has done. He has cut off those that have familiar spirits. See, so this woman knows, and she thinks that Saul, who is right in front of her, cut off those that have familiar spirits. And this is, of course, Saul. Okay. So Saul swore to her by the Lord, as the Lord lives, there shall no punishment happen to you for this thing. See, Saul, also in this, okay, Saul, when he did inquire of the Lord didn't answer him. Okay. Okay. Not by dreams, not by stones, not by prophets. Okay. So he goes and seeks this woman. So, see, you see here, so Saul's mad because God's not answering him, but at the same time, he's swearing to her by God. Okay? He's speaking in place of God. This is pride. This is pride, and this is, the same thing that still goes on. These prophets divine for money. The judge takes bribes for a reward. These things still go on. And David said, like he says in Psalm 73, meanwhile, I'm in trouble every single day. I'm fighting for my life every single day. You know? So he says, whom shall I bring up? And he says, bring me up Samuel. And the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, why have you deceived me? For you are Saul. Okay, so it's also interesting here because Samuel was a great prophet that talked to God, through things that God is not answering Saul on now. See, so, and the king said to her, be not afraid, for what did you see? The woman said to Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said to her, what form is he of? And she said, an old man comes up. He's covered with a mantle. Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. See, so we were just talking about how David was teaching people to bow. Okay, he was teaching, I don't know if it was the Philistines or what, but he was teaching them the secrets of bowing, And Samuel said to Saul, why have you disquieted me to bring me up? So you're supposed to leave a soul in peace. And Saul answered, I am sore distressed. For the Philistines make war against me. God has departed from me and answers me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you make known to me what I should do. And it said, Samuel, why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and has become your enemy? And the Lord has done to him as he spoke by me, for the Lord has rent out the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, even to David. So Samuel answered him and gave him an answer. You've been plucked from your kingdom, because you obeyed not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath on Amalek. Therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines. Tomorrow you and your sons shall be with me, and the Lord shall deliver the hosts of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway along the earth and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. There was no strength in him. He had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And a woman came to Saul and saw that he was sore troubled, and said, behold, your handmaid has obeyed your voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have listened to your words which you have spoke to me. Now I pray you, listen to the voice of your handmaid. Let me set a morsel of bread before you and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way. Okay, see, and this thing happens later on here. We'll see here where David feeds this guy with bread. Okay, that he has strength. So he refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him as he listened to their voice. And he arose from the earth and sat on the bed. Okay, so also, so he's sitting on the bed here. So real quick, let's just go back to Psalm 63 here, which is talking about this exact moment. Okay, so you see how God works, okay? See, Saul doesn't want to eat. He doesn't have no he doesn't want to eat no food. Even though he's offered food, he doesn't want to eat no food. But see, David says this: my soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. And even though all this stuff that David is going through, okay, he's still saying to God, hey, I thirst for you. I hunger for you. Okay, so remember Saul was on his bed. Okay, now here's David on his bed. When I remember you on my bed and I meditate on you in the night watches. Okay, so you have been my help. In the shadow of your wings will I rejoice. But see, now you see how Samuel, this lady, this witch at Endor, she saw Samuel and God's ascending out of the earth. Okay, so Samuel's coming up out of the earth. Okay. And where's Saul going? He's going to the lower parts of the earth. The lower parts of the earth. Because why? Because he's seeking David's soul to destroy it. Okay? And nevertheless, David's words were never rang more true. Even though David lamented, okay, over Saul and his knitted soul brother Jonathan, his little bromance Jonathan. So this happens. So you see the difference and the parallel here between the way that David's acting when he's in the wilderness and the way that Saul's acting when he doesn't have what he wants anymore. Okay. So even though you could be on a completely, when you think of being in the wilderness, having nobody, being in your home area, nobody wants you, this and that. So this is what David's going through. But see, the mouth of them that speak lies shall be stopped. And what was Saul doing? He was speaking lies. Okay? He was speaking lies. Okay, so I'll probably get into this a little more. But, so you see how this is also, it's kind of a parallel here also as well, because there was no strength in Saul. Remember, because he had eaten no bread all the day nor all the night. But what did David do? What did David say? Hey, my flesh. Remember how Jesus said, I'll give you my flesh to eat. Okay? I'll give you my blood to drink. Right? So, God isn't giving Saul any flesh to eat. No blood to drink. But David is begging, saying he's nothing without the flesh. Nothing without God's blood. Nothing without his loving kindness. Okay? So eventually Saul does eat this. Okay? They do eat. And they rise up and they leave. Okay? But that's just a little something that I just found just by reading this, and I could be completely wrong. This is just me going over this stuff and just finding things and connecting dots. So, and so I'll stop right there. And yeah, I hope if anyone sees this, they got something out of it.